Okay, so here we go with Mr. Madison's War, getting off to the start. And really, you know, my rules introduction, as it was kind of a mess. Mainly because so many people have covered it. But I did want to point out, and I like doing an intro, and I did want to point out what I wanted to cover there. So we're in the spring summer, but this is pre-war, and the way this works is there's 14 cards on the top. One of those cards is the Declaration of War card. The U.S. has looked at the situation, considered it a little bit. He draws a card. Approved defense. Okay, so this is a card that's used for defense in battle. And keep the U.S. on one side and the Brits on the other. Now, that's as a event, and it gives a modifier. That sounds pretty cool. One command point isn't enough to do much with, so I'm going to hold this card for later. I could activate something. There's no question of that. It might be useful for that, but I think having this card for battle sounds like a good idea. So now the Brits draw a card, and they get a battle card as well. This is only a U.S. one, and that's going... They can pay the 2 points to position someone. I'm not sure who to position. I would kind of like to bring Prevost down. He's got a nice little stack. He can command up to 15 people. I think you're allowed to pick people up on the way. Let me stop, think a little bit, look at the rules, but I think the Brits are going to do some repositioning with that. That's a valuable enough card. They can get down into the Champlain border, which is where I think the battle almost inevitably is going to start out. Not, well, you know, this area is more likely to get gains, but if you can get the big gains here, I think it's more important. So let's see what we can do with the Brits. Okay, so the Brits are playing this for the operation. They move Prevost down to here. He picks up Rottenburg. He has a fairly powerful force. The U.S. probably has to react before the war breaks out, or else their Lake Champlain area is in threat. And the U.S. draws. This is a quick couple of victory points the U.S. can take. On the other hand, and if they don't take it as victory points, that's all, you know. Do you want to hold this card for the victory points, 2 victory points, or do you want to play it to get Dearborn moving up? That's a tough call. I think I want to move Dearborn. Unfortunately, Dearborn's army is not as big as what Prevost has there. But I feel like I have to react. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We put him up in Plattsburgh. Not the optimal position because it is clear terrain, but at least I have something in the area. The Brits are going to pull Northwest Tribes. This card can be played in this event if the British have not captured the fort. It's a 2 victory point card. I don't feel like the Brits want to pass on some bonus victory points. They're going to put that into their hand. The U.S. draws the Declaration of War. The U.S. is free to invade Canada, and the British units are free to attack the U.S. We've just started the war. And now, what happens when that is drawn? We're going to draw out the remaining cards, starting with the person who didn't get the DOW to draw first. And essentially, each person has 7 cards, including the ones they played. So those first 14 are going to come out. I'll deal those out, and then we start the basic play of the game. We've got the armies in position along the Lake Champlain area up here, and we're ready to kick. Okay, so the British have the next action in this battle. In this situation, because the Americans drew the DOW card. That means, well, I've got this card I want to play for 2 victory points, but I can't play it until I've captured Fort Mackinac over here. And this is tough to capture. My schooner here is only allowed to carry this little detachment, which might win, it might not. But how about I get something a little more guaranteed for those 2 victory points, plus the victory points of the fort itself. In order to do that, I'm going to activate Proctor, not Tecumseh. I'm not going to lead his forces with him, but he is going to take command of this corvette and brig. Now, the corvette and brig have a naval transport ability of each being able to carry one unit. I don't actually need both. I could send more schooners up. I'm only allowed to command a total of 5 units. Overall, I think this schooner is kind of interesting. It doesn't have any firepower. That's what its little asterisk there instead of a letter means. So I think I'm going to spend a 2-point card, and I'll find a 2-point card, and then I'll do an amphibious assault on that space. We'll see how that works. I'm allowed to do transport and assaults, etc., because my opponent doesn't control the lake. And digging through my cards, I have a 2-point card. It's a winter event for the opponent. Totally useless to me for anything like that. Of course, I could use it for Prevost, to attack. My leaders have decent command numbers. The U.S., at least their big leader, is Dearborn, and Rensselaer, only Hull is particularly active. Anyway, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take command of these couple boats. I'm going to sail up. That's 1 movement point to get out to the lake. 2-3 to the transit space. I don't get control of the lake unless I end my movement there. 4, I don't remember how many movements a boat has. I hope it's enough, because otherwise I got a problem. Is it listed somewhere? It's only 6 movement points. God damn. And transport, I think, costs something. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't think I can get there. Moving from one lakeside town to another costs 1, but I'm missing 1 point for picking up the units and dropping them off. Shit. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it. You know what? I don't want to send those big ships there if that's the case. Alright. Let me see if I can figure something else out. This is a decent unit, but well, this fort's only a C quality. I don't know what a C quality fort does for you. It doesn't seem to do much at all. So, you know, I've got a chance there, but I don't really want to fight that with a naval attack, if that's the case. I got to think some more, because I don't know if I want to spend 2 cards to get that 2 points. I probably shouldn't have held the cards if so. If I'm going to spend, if I'm going to get the jump on something, I've got another card that gives me 2 points by putting Tecumseh out in kind of a risky location. And then alternatively, I could use Prevost to make his attack. I don't know what the Americans think they can do up here, though. So that's kind of an issue, too. Okay, so I decided to move Proctor, sail him out of Fort Malden with his ships. I'm the only one with a navy out here, taking control of Lake Huron. That's the first step towards moving down. I moved in 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got a couple more movement points I could take, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be able now to sail out of here and make my landing, and then sail back into the lake and maintain control. I should have a British lake control marker here and put a couple of victory points. It's kind of interesting. This game gives 2 different options for the victory points. A zero-sum kind of flip them over, and also a track each player's victory points separately with markers, whichever one you happen to favor. Kind of a waste of counters, but you know, rather than printing blanks when you have too many counters, it seems kind of neat to make that kind of option. Alright, so that's what the Brits are doing. You might ask, well, why didn't you use Prevost? You don't really want to use these cards. Here's the problem with Prevost. Let's say attack here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the shortest route down. I could also go this way. This game allows you to withdraw from combat almost without restriction. So Dearborn could just say, yeah, I don't want to fight, and give up Plattsburgh. Yeah, that's a lot of victory points to give up. But it's only temporary. And it's, it's not like you can force that decisive land battle just by marching in and opposing someone. They can pull out at any point in the battle. You could almost always retreat before combat. The only case where you can't is where you're surrounded by enemy territory. In those cases, you don't have this ability to just withdraw from the battle. So basically, both players have to want the battle, or the defender has to at least want to, have no real recourse to get out of the battle. So, pitched battles are a very, very unlikely thing on land in this game. All right, anyway, that's where we are there. That advance did not seem terribly time imperative. Currently, I've got Prevost up here with a fair stack, getting my victory points right now off my cards and off the fort. Seemed like a good idea. Onto the American side, well, they had a card they wanted to play. They had some defensive cards they kind of liked, but they want to play this raid at Frenchman's Creek. And this is kind of weird, but the U.S. has a regular unit in Buffalo? No, they do not. This counts as militia. So, for me to trigger this, I've got to get some troops into play. I've got regulars down here and here. If I've got a 1-point card I could spend. These are combat cards I kind of like. This is a British card that I can't play. I could make this Lewiston to Queenston attack or Buffalo to Fort Erie with no negative modifier for a river invasion. Well, I don't know how tremendous that is to make that attack across there into Fort Erie. I think I want to get some troops into play. So now the question is, well, the improved defense led Dearborn to desire that attack. I kind of like this one too. I don't really want to play a 2-point card for this, but I don't have many 2-point leaders other than Hall, who could of course launch an attack against Tecumseh here. But Tecumseh has, although he can't command them directly, a bunch of regulars there. It's still a fairly good force. It's not like I think there's any great advantage to launching an attack here on Malden. So yeah, I'm going to spend the 2-point card to move the 23rd. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can only move the 1 unit because I don't have units stacked. You might say, well, there were other things you could do. I mean, you can grab lake control or something. That's true over on Champlain. Over here on Ontario, I'm facing bigger ships, or more ships, not necessarily bigger. Yeah, more here too. So that would be a dangerous place to go, I think. So I'll just go with that. Let's see. Well, I'm going to think a little bit about the Brits, but I think they're going to be launching that naval action. Kind of sucks to give up the initiative here, but I really do want those cards to trigger. The Brits choose to play a winter event card, the Epic March of the 104th. That would be kind of cool. It gives them an extra unit, but they'd have to hold the card not just this turn, but next turn until the winter to play it. That seems like a large expanse, so I'm going to play it as a 2-point card to once again activate Proctor. He can't command a lot of troops, but I can sail in for 1, 2 to pick up. It's going to cost me 3 to sail here, 4 to drop them off, and then a 5th movement to sail back out. But I can't really sail back out. So instead, let's sail out here, drop the schooner off, and then sail in here with the extra troops. That way I can use Proctor to command these forces and capture the space. Alright, well, we have a battle, and the Americans really don't have anywhere I think they're allowed to retreat to. They don't have control of the lake, so they can't retreat from there, so we're going to have a battle. And what we have, it seems like too many of these. Again, at some point you'd rather have blanks, I guess. This battle site marker Gets to mark down where the fight's happening. And we have this fight here. Now, both sides have an opportunity to play cards, and both sides have combat cards. I don't think either one wants to play one in this condition. No, the Brits do not. And I'm pretty sure the Americans don't want to. Their defensive card that they want to play, they want to hold that and try to do a major battle with that. So we're going to have these two units versus this. Let's grab our card and we look at the value. And we've got a ratio here of 4-to-1. It's an amphibious terrain. Well, 4-to-1, first of all, will give us a +2 to the attack modifier. Terrain drops that to +1. Leaders brings that up to +2. I get to choose the lead units. I'm going to choose my good unit here. And, well, they've got their detachment. But the fort only raises that to a C, so that it is a C. I don't know what a fort is worth in those conditions. So we end up with one more. That brings us to +3. Defenses in a fort, defenders get benefit of the fort but not liabilities. Let me look to see if there is something that a C will help with. Yeah, there may be some slight advantage. The lead unit choice is kind of annoying here. If the defender has only reduced units, he does not have the option of choosing a lead unit. The lowest class must be chosen, but if you have reduced units in a fort, you're able to... You cannot choose the unit higher than the fort's class. Of course, for some reason, defending in a fort says you get the benefit but not liabilities. What? This whole section is a little weird on me. I'm going to play it how I was used to it, but if defending a fort with a mixture of B and C class units, the defender is not required to select his B unit as the lead, but he would still get the benefit of the fort should the C lead. This is different. Yeah, this whole section doesn't make a lot of sense. From what I understand, these suckers replace your quality. Well, a C doesn't get any... Nothing's going to get better with a C. They replace it if it bonuses you. So, I don't remember where we were. We were at 4-to-1 is +2, +1 for the leader, +1 for the quality, brought me up to... Alright, let's try again. 4-to-1 gives me +2 base. Let's keep going through these modifiers and see what they all work. Amphibious and forest, the maximum modifier terrain is -1. Well, it's amphibious and forest, so we go from +2 down to +1. +2 from what? Oh, from size. To +1, +2 for the leader, and then +3 for the quality, and I guess I had it all figured out there. And now we flip over here, and it's actually all over here. It's just not as valuable. Like it's not clarified that you can't combine these. So we're at +3 on a 2-die roll. We get a 4. That gives us a 7 exchange. Both sides take a step loss, and the combat continues. Well, a step loss is enough to destroy these two units. They're not going to be rebuilt. I'll just put them aside. They'll get bagged. And the English have now taken Fort Mackinac, and that gives them 2 quick victory points. Keep this kicking around in case I need it. Now they can play the card they want to play, and then they can also shift those navies back down, take control of Lake Erie, which they want to do. Now the Americans get to drop their card, raid at Frenchman's Creek. That's going to give them 2 victory points, essentially take it away from the zero-sum game. I'm going to leave this out because without these cards, you can't calculate the total effect of the events. But here's the thing. I mean, like you can count on the map, but then you have to say, well, how did the cards affect things? Here's the thing. The British are going to immediately play their Northwest Tribes card, which they can now play. That's why they did this. That gives them 2 victory points, boosting it back up. Since these 2 cards cancel each other out, I throw them in the discard pile. in terms of victory point effects. So essentially no cards have been played for my little way of recording so that I can reconstruct the victory points when I need them. You know what I never went into? I went into the automatic victories, but there may be other ways of, there are other ways of winning the game. Obviously, when you reach the end, if you get the victory point level, but somewhere or another, it tells you how you can win. Nice little index there. Yeah, otherwise it happens when the Treaty of Ghent, New Orleans comes out. And some restrictions here, but I don't think there's any automatic victory other than the two that I mentioned, which I can't find. I just kind of remember them off the top of my head. Like I said, I didn't want to reread the rules, especially when everybody else has already covered a rules explanation. All right, so we are on, I think, the Americans again. So the U.S. played the Van Rensselaer Chief Surprise because he has a regular with him, right? No, that wasn't a requirement here. That was the other victory. Okay. Because he had significant forces. Anyway, he crosses over, attacks Fort Erie. Very easy to take. It was an 8-1 attack. He destroyed the unit. Gets it. That's 4 victory points. That neutralizes the British current lead. Actually, the British... Where's the other British? Oh, the other British too is the fleet. Okay, great. The negation of this doesn't really matter because it's still a wooded area and only one terrain thing accounts. So hitting in the woods, many had a penalty. Likewise, hitting here, attacking British regulars, which these guys are, in the open would have given him a different penalty. So attacking this other larger stack wouldn't have helped much. Plus, he's got kind of this nicer control situation where he can slide up if he really needs to. Anyway, that seemed like a better move. Still kind of just diddling around, though. It's not this feeling that much is happening here, right? We'll move on to the Brits and see where we go. So after playing a couple more cards, the Americans reinforced up here at Lewiston. Prevent the Brits from burning that, maybe. The Brits played this extended march, pulled a unit down from Sorel here. Now the Americans have an annoying position. They're holding the card they want to defend Plattsburgh. This gives them a -2 die roll. They cannot in any way save this against this card. They can save it and put it into reserve for next turn, saying we'll have defenses next turn. Or they can use it for the 1 point, maybe to gain a lake control. They're going to throw it into the save, but this is annoying because now the Brits are going to launch a 2-point movement to jump into here. And you might say, well, why don't the Americans just, let's see, I've got like the ability to carry 15 guys with me. That's a huge army, more than I need. But let's say I go here, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, I'm going to leave a guy behind. I actually want to leave something behind that's big enough that it can handle those Vermont militia up here. I think I've got good numbers. I know the Americans don't have a card that can help them. And now, I've got one more movement point left for the Brits. The Americans can withdraw or they can fight. Those are their options. They cannot hold it. Now you could say, well, what's the big deal about withdrawing from Plattsburgh? The big deal is this. If I withdraw from Plattsburgh, it gives up my naval base there. Now I'm going to do it to jump back to Port Kent. And now the Brits have an interesting question. If they leave a 4 strength point piece there at Plattsburgh, they're getting weaker, but they gain 4 victory points. Do I have something? I don't know if I want to use an A quality unit for this. That's too good a unit for the upcoming battle. So I get 4 more victory points. Now those don't really matter, right? Except well, that's the marginal and decisive victory points at the end of the game. They don't matter too much, but they are protecting my supply line, and I do want to continue my attack down. I'll keep marching down. Now here's the question: does Dearborn want to try to defend this with some defensive bonus whatsoever, or does he want to just keep falling back towards his base? He's going to keep falling back. He's got plenty of places he can defend, but now the English are in a valuable location. Now the English can't build a depot here. They can't winter here in any good shape, but it's still springtime. And that's the end of our first deck. I'll load this up, and we'll go on to the summer and autumn of 1812.